Welcome to Simmons Says, where I help emerging and struggling writers create intriguing plots and compelling characters to make their stories hard to put down and even harder to forget. You had a mystery story idea for sometimes. It was a good one. It's a really good one. You were excited the first time you came up with it. It grabbed you. It lit you up. You were fired. You hit the keyboards or you grabbed a pen and a pad and you went at it. And it was just flowing initially. And then at a certain point in space and time, you found yourself, to use a metaphor, kind of running down a dark alley and finding there was no way out. You had no idea where to go from that point, and in some ways, the characters, the dialogue, the plan that you had in mind was starting to stalk you or haunt you like you'd done something bad and they were coming for you. And that was months ago, and you still haven't worked it out. Well, I'm going to help you. I'm Alex Simmons, and welcome to another episode of Simmons Says, where I try to help you figure out what happens next in your story. And in this particular case, I'm going to pick up where I left off last week when I was trying to help you work out how to look at your plots as if you were an investigator, trying to figure out what was missing, what had happened, why, motives, opportunity, means, that sort of thing. Well, this time I'm going to help you sort of identify why your plot or your story isn't working. So first off, let's look at some of the more popular reasons that mystery plots don't tend to work out as well as maybe the writer might want, or certainly, some of the things I've gone through in my life and some of my clients have. One of the first ones is that the crime isn't very clear. Someone has picked a particular crime, whether it's murder, blackmail, counterfeiting, some sort of theft or heist or something like that, and they have an idea it's going to be this kind of a crime. I'm going to have this character do this. Here's going to be the victim, and the police are going to investigate, and we're going to go for, if it's a screenplay, we're going to go for X amount of time, or if it's a novel or a short story, we're going to go for a certain number of pages or chapters, and then there's going to be the reveal as to who did it and how and why. That's one problem, is thinking about the crime from the point of, oh, this could be cool and this could be exciting. And I think I've got some images of how I want to set up a scene, a location, how I want to pull off if it's a shooting, what that's going to look like. You get sort of involved in the the excitement of the moment, the coolness, the cleverness of the moment. Maybe if it's a film, you're thinking about, oh, what this shot's going to look like, or what the special effects are going to look like. That's a slippery slope. That's not exactly, as the writer, how you should be looking at that scene initially, how you should be looking at the crime initially. And I'll come back to that in a moment. So that's one possible, or one popular or average, depending on where you are, trip that people sort of stumble over, in putting together a mystery story. Then there's another one, the clues. I remember when I was working for what's called a book packager, which is, no, we're not wrapping books. This was, you can think of it like being producers for a big studio, right? We put together the programming. We get the actors, the scripts, and all that, and we put that together. And then the network, like the streaming service, where they broadcast the piece. Or if we put it together for a book publishing company, then we do all the writing, the editing, everything, and then Simon and Schuster or Random House or Penguin, they publish it, right? So it's, a book packager is like a producer in a production team. So I was working with one particular book packager, and they were doing, of all things, middle grade mystery novels for kids, right? So you're talking 8 to 12 year olds. One would think, oh, this is going to be a snap. It's not for adults. I don't have to be as complex. The types of crimes, things don't have to be so graphic or whatever, right? Piece of cake. And that was the attitude that a number of the writers who I was working with as an assistant editor, So the attitude they had. They had written a number of middle grade books, different kinds of stories. Some of them were, as they were fond of saying, award-winning writers. And we would make it even a little bit easier for them. We would give them a plot. Here are the characters, because it was for a series of books that we were doing, so we were always using the same characters. So here are the characters. Here's a plot for this particular story. Go forth and be brilliant. And they would come back after having presented an outline, they would come back with a full manuscript, and it wouldn't work. It would not work. And one of the reasons was because the crime would be committed, the sleuths would go through the process of asking questions and following people and things like that. And then in the last chapter or two, the big reveal. This person did it. Oh, and they get captured. There was no idea of how they pulled it off and left clues. And then there were quite often no clues. None. It would just suddenly, the detective or the sleuth would suddenly make a declaration at the end of the story, and boom. So that's not really an authentic detective or mystery story. It's more like, okay, we watch some people go through some paces and boom, here's the reveal. It's entertaining, but it's not what it was supposed to be. So sometimes not being able to lay out clues, not even knowing what the clues should be, is problematic. Then you have, again, your solution. Well, if I've been watching a mystery story or reading one, I don't see any clues. I'm not really seeing how the detectives are figuring anything out. And they suddenly point to this person at the end as the bad guy or the culprit. I'm going, what? So I'm not satisfied with the ending. I feel cheated. You didn't play fair with me. So you've got the crime isn't worked out clearly enough. You have clues that are not plain enough, clear enough, or even existing within the storyline. And then you have a dissatisfactory, I'm having trouble speaking today. You have a you're not satisfied with the ending of the story, and that's also problematic. There are others, but these are like three of some of the main problems that a number of um, writers struggle with when they're trying to put together mystery stories, right? Again, whether we're talking film or we're talking books, right? Now, how to handle that? If you are coming at this from, okay, I have a crime and I let's say it's a murder. And I have this crime, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to have the villain do this, and then there's going to be a certain number of scenes, or a certain amount of time, or a certain number of chapters, and then there's the reveal at the end. What you have to look at is not just who did it to whom, and who's going to catch them, but you also have to look at several other steps along the way, and one of them is where do I place the clues that the detective or the investigators will find legitimately, and that if the audience is paying attention, they might pick up on one or two or three, so that when we hit the ending, everybody goes, "Oh, great. Oh, I see it. I get it. I get it." Or, "Oh, that's why I said such and such." So you got to be fair with your audience, reading or watching. You got to be fair with them. So you have to understand the crime and understand who's going to solve the crime and understand where to lay out the clues in order for everyone to feel you played fair with them. Uh, how do you lay out clues for a mystery? This is something I'm going to go into more detail in another episode, but I will give you one big hint right now, and that is if you know how the crime was committed, you have a very good idea of how to lay out the clues, or at least what clues are involved, could be involved, what could have happened that a detective or an investigator could pick up on. And there are a number of different types of clues that one can utilize in a story. And again, in another episode, I'll go into that. But for now, we're talking about why your mystery might not work. So, one, do you truly understand the crime that you're utilizing? If you grab a crime off a list of possibles, and I have quite a list, because it sounds cool or it's going to be visually great, you know, it's exciting in that respect, but you don't understand it. You don't really understand how it works. You don't understand how someone can do those things in order to make that crime or pull off that crime correctly, then your story is going to be weak. You're not going to convince the audience that this individual, this culprit, is really doing this thing and that this person is going to then be caught through a series of police procedural or mystery and investigative methodologies. We're not going to buy it because we're already going to feel like, yeah, I don't know. I don't get that. I don't see how that could have happened. I don't believe this person did such and such. So choose a crime that you can, do some research on or sink your teeth into. And again, we're not talking about perpetrating them. Okay. Let me be clear about that. But don't go for some big elaborate crime that you have no idea how it works, because that will come across in your story and it will weaken the read. It will weaken the experience for your audience. The other thing is, again, once you know the crime, you'll have a better idea of how to lay out your clues. Now, I'll give you one more thing that is a factor in why a mystery story might not work. And I often say to my students that audiences come to a film or people pick up a book and read a story to find out how the characters are going to get through this particular adventure, mystery, murder, love affair, whatever. We follow the characters, we connect to the characters. If it's a film, we don't just go to watch the film so that we can listen to the score or look at the scenery. We are invested in those characters. What's going to happen with them? How do they deal with this? And do they win, lose, or whatever at the end? Same thing with books. So your characters need to be compelling, whether we're talking victim, villain, or victor. And I don't mean victor as in Hugo. I mean as in someone who wins out, right? The sleuth, the hero. We have to be interested in them. You want us to care about them. So if you're looking at your story and it's just not working, well, how are your characters? Are they interesting? Or are they funny? Are they intriguing? Are they clever? Are they vicious? Is it something that pulls your reader in or pulls your viewer in? If they're laissez-faire, if they're mediocre, if they're flat, if the dialogue is not compelling or convincing, then that's another reason that your mystery is not working. Ultimately, if you have written a mystery story and it's not working, go back and explore those things. Look at the crime you chose and does it make sense? Look at the kind of characters you're using and are they authentic in their portrayal, right? Look at the clues. Did you lay any out legitimately? Are they there, woven within the story for sharp-eyed and attentive viewers or readers to pick up on? It's okay if the viewer or reader misses them because they were there and they were legit, but we just didn't pick up on it. It's okay. You can't do anything about that. But if somebody's really been paying attention, really wrapped up in the story, and the clues are not there, then you have been playing fair. So look and see, did you lay out your clues properly? And really, how's the ending? Is it satisfactory? When the reveal happens, does your audience have an opportunity to go, oh, wow, I didn't see it. I didn't see it coming. I didn't know it was this character, but I get it. Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. Um, I just saw a movie recently. I won't name the film because I really don't want to be a downer on it. I had fun with it. It was a fun little film. But I just saw a mystery film that just came out recently. And when the reveal comes at the end as to who the actual culprit is, there had been some clues, but they were weak. They were really kind of weak. And the denouement, when the sleuth does the big reveal, that character throughout the film had not developed sufficiently that I believed in this big exposition at the end that this character had figured all that out. It it really felt like The writers are going, okay, now we got to pull this all together, and this has to be the hero. So, yes, we'll just say this person figured it all out. It felt that way. Maybe that wasn't the intention. I would suspect it wasn't, but it felt like that. Now, again, I had fun with the film. I enjoyed some of the characters. I am not going to badmouth the film, not at all. But as someone who loves mystery stories, whether I figure them out or not, this one had those flaws where certain things were not positioned properly, or the delivery at the end was not as satisfactory as it could have been. And that's life. That's life, right? You want to try and deliver a satisfactory ending because we've just gone on this ride with you, read your book or seen your film, and we want to have had a good time. You want your audience to have enjoyed it. And so that we come out going, wow, that was fun, that was exciting. Or, oh my goodness, that was great. I can't wait to see what else this person comes up with. But that's the question. When you are trying to figure out why your stories don't work, when in this case we're talking mysteries, but in any story, take a look at your setup, take a look at your characters, take a look at your dialogue, take a look at your pacing, take a look at your delivery at the end, your reveal, your climax, your resolution. Look at them separately and see if they work. Then look at them as a whole and see if it works. And understand that as a friend of mine, another writer, and who I do another podcast with called Chris Ryan, as Chris and I have often said, to serve the story doesn't mean you've got to write it and get it right in that first draft. Rewrites are your friends. I will say this 1,000 times and then 1,000 times more. Rewrites are your friends. So just getting it out of your head, laying it out, that rough draft, that messy draft, fine, great. You got it out. Now you can start working on it and you can go at it in segments several times, multiple times until it feels right to you. And if you want, bounce it off of a few people, some readers, beta readers, you know. If you belong to a writing group, that's fine. Let them help you with it. Get reactions from other people. Chris also talks about reading it aloud like you've been paid $10,000 to do it. So no. You know, put some energy into it, some life into it so you can hear the words. You can hear how it flows. You can hear if the dialogue's believable, if the characters are coming across, and if you feel as you're going through it, yeah, that clue is set just where I need. No, I need to move this over. I need another red herring. We'll talk about red herrings another time, right? And the suspect, we'll talk about them another time. Raymond Chandler was one of those great mystery writers from back in the 30s and 40s, you know, when there was what it was called noir mysteries, you know, noir detectives, you know, tough, hard boiled, that kind of thing. And he created a character that was very well known at the time and through even the 90s, Philip Marlowe, right? And there was a couple of films that were based on novels by Raymond Chandler. One was called The Big Sleep. Another one was called Farewell, My Lovely. So Raymond Chandler, you know, he had a lot under his belt as an experienced writer. And he said, the good detective story writer competes not only with all of the unburied dead, but with all the hosts of the living as well. So he could be referring to the body count, the people who get killed in the story, but then there's the living. There's all the people that the detective has to navigate through and around in order to find the truth. So you as mystery writers, it's not only about the crime and the villain. It's about all of the other characters that interact in your story and what weight do they bring to this to the tale. I hope that what I've shared with you guys is of some use, will help you deal with any challenges that you're dealing with your particular stories. And if not, write to me. Let me know what you're challenged by, and I can either share some experience or tips that will help you, or I can point you in the right direction for someone else who can. Okay? Either way, thank you very much. Take care, and see you next time.